Hey, how you doing, bud? You all right?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Very dapper, very dapper.
One tries to look a little smart now and then.
Oh, I feel underdressed here, Graham. I've got a t-shirt on. What a slob.
Have you redecorated at home?
I redecorated the office. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks lovely.
Yeah, I kind of went for the grey, and it was a bit of a gamble. I wasn't sure if it was going to be too dark or not, but I think with the lighting and that, it seems to work okay.
Yeah, it looks very smart.
Thank you very much.
Trouble is, you look at the tip of the place I've got behind me.
I bet you are a lot more productive than I am, though. I'll tell you that.
I've got to do something. It just looks terrible.
I'm the world's worst procrastinator. Honestly, I will find anything to do other than what needs to be done, and I work better under pressure, so I tend to leave it till it's like, okay, now it has to be done, and then it's like, right, let's just get on with it. But up until that point, I'll do anything other than what I should be doing.
I am exactly the same. I was like it as a child, as a teenager. Because I know I'm like it. I try to be better at it for work, the day job. But I'm better, but I'm still not great.
Sometimes I pity Tom because he's going to have his work cut out, isn't he? Me, you, and Kristy.
Will he ever? Will he ever? Yeah.
We'll find out tomorrow, eh? Tomorrow, folks. Tomorrow is
Don't have a drink, guys. Don't have a drink.
Yeah, I know. Most of my van is going to be full of carry-out. Well, certainly not the bike. The bike's not blooming starting yet. It'll all become apparent, folks, in whatever episode this is going to be that we're filming tomorrow or Sunday. Yeah, I bought a bike and it won't start. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm talking as if we started. Are you okay for us to have just started straight away, or do you want a little chat?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
I've got my Friday evening water.
Excellent. Shall we? I'll tell you what, folks. Welcome back to the podcast. We've got Graham Hoskins here, my fellow presenter on the new What is it called? Motorbike TV show or motorbike show?
Yeah, just Motorbike TV. Yeah.
Motorbike TV. It's going to be called on Motors. Is that right?
Well, it will be available on Dunlop's website.
Yes,
and it will be available on Motors TV, which is
awesome.
A subscription. No, not Motors TV. Motorsport TV.
Motorsport TV.
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, yeah, so it's not motor, right? Motorsport TV, right? Excellent. I had a load of people coming up. I was at Richie Vida's Wild Bad Weekend. I'll tell you what, let's crack open a beer, shall we?
Splendid.
Look at this. Do you have your refreshment there all ready to go?
I do, yes.
Excellent.
Absolutely. I've gone for the shorter refreshment because if I'd gone for beers, I'd be up every 10 minutes. I have a bladder the size of a pin.
So you've just gone for hard liquor, like it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Excellent. Slange to you. Very nice. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. I was at Richie Vida's Wild Bad Weekender last weekend, which was awesome. Cheers, Rich, for the invite. And loads of people were coming up. I had a load of people coming up saying, I've seen your show's been advertised. It's going to be on ITV4. And I was like, is it? ITV4? I didn't know that.
Fantastic.
And they were like, I've seen the adverts for it. So I was like, oh, cool. So whenever people were asking, I was saying, yeah, apparently it's going to be on ITV4. That's the Henry Cole show, isn't it? Motorbike TV show, whatever it's called. Yeah. They've seen that advertised and thought that was our show. That's not our show, folks. Ours is going to be on Motorsports.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, maybe it'll be somewhere else as well. It was going to be on Amazon Prime. Maybe I need to explain what happened with Amazon Prime.
I wasn't sure if we could explain it or not, but feel free, please do.
It's all kind of public domain stuff. Amazon Prime was the new home of Adventure Bike TV and was going to be the home of Motorbike TV. But Amazon have changed their rules around what content they'll take onto the Prime service, and basically. Most kind of documentaries that aren't their own things, either things they've made or things they have bought, have just been either pushed onto Amazon. So you can still watch Adventure Bike TV on Amazon, but it's not Prime, so you have to pay to watch it.
Right.
And they're just not accepting new stuff. They curate their content, and the problem was there was a lot of content on there that was becoming quite more aligned to kind of YouTube short videos, pop videos, and that's not what Amazon are about. So I understand it's not necessarily a permanent thing, but there's no appeal. There's no, can we please stay? So it's a real shame, but yeah, there we are.
It would. But like you said, things may change in the future. But anyway, we still got the show, and it's going to be available on the Dunlop website for free. You can watch it there.
Yes.
And now Motorsports TV as well. For this season, who knows?
I will double check that.
That may change. Keep your eye on the socials. But anyway, mate, right. Shall I pass it open to you? Normally, I just go, right, what's your name? Where'd you come from? What you do? People have probably already watched the podcast we did with yourself and Tom and Kristy, but what's your name? Where'd you come from? What you do?
Okay, so Graham Hoskins. I have been the presenter or host. I think Tom calls it the host of Adventure Bike TV for 8 years now. 8 years. Wow. So the first 6 of which were on YouTube and the last 2 on Amazon Prime. And 4 motorbike adventure TV series. Yeah, 4 I've done now as well as the TV show. So, it's the most fabulous hobby. It's not my day job. My day job is something completely different. I run a management consulting business, and then on the side I do a bit of kind of motivational speaking. But maybe we'll come back to that a bit later. Kind of what happened and what all built up to that. And I'm what I would call an amateur adventurer. You know, I'm not a kind of person who's been off and done what you did and spent, was it a year or a year and a half?
About a year and a half, yeah. 442 days. Not that you remember exactly, but and I'm deeply envious of being able to kind of go off and do that kind of adventure. But it was kind of in me, I suppose, to a degree at an early age, and always was there. But lots of things happened, which meant it didn't happen. But then other things happened, and I wanted to try and get out and do an adventure. And maybe if I kind of come back to that story again later on. So my thing became, what can you do in 2 weeks? Yeah. What's a 2-week adventure? Yeah. So I did, the first one was to Moscow and back in actually 6 days. That's a fair trek. Hell. On the bike?
Yeah.
I didn't know you'd done it in 6 days. Wow, I knew you'd been, but didn't
6.5. Was... I'm making myself sound grand.
Oh, right. Okay. 6.5. That's easy, though, aren't you?
Yeah. And then we did, off the back of that, 5 years later, I did around the Mediterranean, circumnavigated the Mediterranean Sea. Yeah. That was in 15 days. And then we did West Africa, and then I did all the way up to the northernmost point in Europe. And then did a UK-based one with Tom about 3 years ago. So those were kind of the 2-week adventures. And I'd like to think I've proved you can have an astonishing adventure in 2 weeks, whether it be abroad, the UK, wherever it is.
I love that sort of that ethos behind it. You know, what can you do in 2 weeks? Because there's so many people who want to do this big life-changing adventure, and for whatever reason they can't, you know, they're not in that fortunate position to take 6 months, a year, however long it's going to take. They can't take that chunk of time off, can they? And they just sort of write it off. I can't do it. I'll have to wait till I've retired, the kids have gone, you know, I've divorced, whatever it is, whatever the reason is, I win the lottery. People put it off, but there are people out there such as yourself, and I know that there was another chap I met at one of the Horizons Unlimited things. He's doing the same. You know, he gets 2 weeks a year that are just his, and he just goes off, and he's literally, I think he's doing a world adventure, but he's just goes away, does 2 weeks, and then wherever he stops, he marks it, and he goes back to his normal life. And the next time he gets 2 weeks, he goes back to that point, and he carries on going. He's just chipping away. Yeah. I think that's brilliant to do stuff like that. Mega.
Yeah, I do. I got into a bit of a argy-bargy with one of the very well-known names in the motorbike adventure world about...
Who was it?
His view was, anybody can take... I can't do an impression of it, but anybody can take...
I think this is anybody can take...
anybody should be able to take 6 months off work. Doesn't matter what you do. Anybody should be able to do it. Or a year. Just go and do it. It's... not that simple.
No, it's not.
Right? Yeah. It's not that simple, because sometimes you can't just take 6 months off work. If you've got a job that you can't leave, or family you can't leave. I had known people who've left their family for 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
I could never do it. I couldn't do it now.
Yeah.
Well, unless it's going to give me a lot of money.
It's a big sacrifice on every level. You know, to go away and do a trip like that, I think it's inherently selfish. No matter how many good reasons you have, it is a selfish thing to do, because you're leaving, you know, whether you're single or not, you're going to have family or you're going to have friends. You're going to leave people behind who are going to be worried about you. They're going to miss you. So it is selfish in a way to go away and do stuff like that, isn't it? But you know, and it's all well and good saying that person saying anyone can take 6 months or a year off. But as you said, you know, people have ties, people have family ties, financial ties, emotional ties, all these different things. It's just not possible for everybody to do something like that.
No, it's not. And I found it hard enough, you know, going away for 2 weeks, and then my family found it tough. But then I'm lucky I have a very understanding wife, so she's an understanding family. You know, the children, all my children are grown up now, but they were much smaller when I went off and did Moscow. And I got back from that. That was 2005, so 16 years ago. Now my eldest, who would have been 7 or 8 at the time, just ran into my arms and couldn't stop crying.
Yeah. What was that like, right into Moscow back then? I mean, I'm saying back 2005 to me still seems like, you know, 2 years ago, but it's 16 years ago now, isn't it? It's incredible. What was it like then? We did have mobile phones, but we had no GPS. Yeah.
So it was old school maps. Yeah.
That's incredible. That is nuts to think we didn't have. Yeah, it's just all so easy now. It's all so convenient, isn't it? Your phone's it's your phone, it's your GPS marker, it's your emergency beacon, it's everything, isn't it? Your computer.
Yeah. And even Moscow, which is a relatively simple adventure, relatively. I mean, you know, it's a complicated, or it was a complicated border crossing and visa, etc. But there was only one, and we took the easy route up through Latvia and Lithuania and Poland, so we didn't do the Belarus route. But it was still easy to get lost in places. But we did. So it was 4,000 miles round trip. So we did almost 900 miles on the first day, and then 650 every day after that.
Yeah.
So the last morning, the 6.5 day was a mere 230 miles. It felt like a walk in the park.
Wow, that is a sprint there and back. What did you do when you got to Moscow? Picture, got back on a bike and left?
You know what? It's almost exactly what we did. We arrived there, because when we arrived, Moscow, and presumably it's still the same now, was 3 concentric rings of roads, big ring roads. Yeah, like we've got the M25, the North and South Circular. They had another one, so 3 ring roads. Yeah. We knew that, and we had a city map. The trouble is, you look at signs in Cyrillic, you can't read them. No. Cyrillic, you can't. There's so many places in the world you can go to where it might be a different language, but at least you can relate what's on a map to what's up on the signs. And this is where it was dark, because we did it in October, so it was getting dark at 6:30. So we riding in the dark for 3 hours. Turned up at actually a service station, just trying to explain. And it was my first experience of trying to communicate with somebody in a different language, with sign language. And actually, the guy was really helpful. Showed him the map. I'm just going foreign, stupid, and he basically kind of pointed on the outside of the map, and then I was able to say the name of the hotel, which was kind of universal language, and he just pointed. So we knew we were on the outside ring road, even though we thought we were on the inside. Yeah. My friend had learned enough Cyrillic letters to recognise centre. So we spent the next hour riding in towards the centre, and then we gave up, went to a taxi rank, said hotel such and such, and just kind of mimed him going, us following, and we followed him. There was just no way we were going to find our way any other way. So we arrived at the hotel at 11, ate something, got accosted by some very beautiful women, and I'm sure they weren't after money.
No, not at all. No.
But we were we were tired. They were definitely after money, but they were beautiful. And then 6 o'clock in the morning, off we went to the Red Square, got our pictures taken in Red Square, and then rode home. So we were in Moscow for 7 hours.
Have you ever been back? Have you ever had a chance to go back? Have you not?
No.
Oh man, you've
No.
done. I mean, it's awesome, but the Russian people are such nice folk, and they actually get friendlier the further east you go. You know, like I've said this time and time. People will be bored hearing this on a podcast, but Russians are like. I met this Moldovan Russian guy called Gennady Philosoph Shatov, that's his name, and he was the first Russian to ride solo around the world, and it was just pure fate. I broke my bike, had snapped the frame again, and he's the organizer and sort of mechanic for this Trans-Russia race that he does every year. People enter it and they ride from St. Petersburg to Vladivostok, 10,000 kilometers, 10 days, boom, go for it. And I happened to sort of meet up with a couple of lads that were leading it. We were having some fun on the roads. I hit a big sort of, the tarmac sort of mountains they have in the road where the tar gets so hot during the summer, and then they have the heavies going over, the heavy vehicles that go over it. They churn the tar up, and then when it cools, it just becomes like a solid lump. Well, I hit one of them on my Gixxer at, fairly rapid speed, and it just snapped the frame again. So I stopped at the side of the road. They said, don't worry about it, we've got a mechanic. And we ended up stood there for like 6 hours waiting for this backup van to come pick us up. And it was this guy, Gennady. So he put me in his van with the bike, and he drove 24 hours to the next town where he'd arranged for a friend of his, a mechanic, to pick the bike up and go and fix the bike, and some friends of his to take me, and I lived with them for like 4 or 5 days. But anyway, that's a long way of me telling you this little story. He was saying to me about Russian people, he said, for Russians, it's very easy. They either like you or they don't. And he said, we'll know that in the first minute of talking to you. And if we don't like you, he said, we either ignore you or we kill you. He said it's as easy as that. It's like, we have no feeling for you. There's nothing. If we don't like you, why bother wasting any time on you? But if they do like you, he said, it's literally, you're now family. You're now, your blood. I'll share whatever I have with you. And it's so true. Like, people just welcome you into their homes. And, I've seen people literally rip bread in half and give you what they've got. And I loved it. I loved Russia. You should go back if you ever get the opportunity.
Well, you know what? We had planned, when we eventually did the trip up to Nordkap, the great, what do you call it? The Great Arctic Bike Off. That was that TV series. That wasn't Adventure Bike TV, but Tom was with it. He was filming it. Now, the original plan for that year was to ride. Now, there was a name for it. It's the collection of roads that allow you to ride from one side of Russia to Vladivostok and the other. Trans-Russia Highway or something.
Right. Trans-Siberian. Well, the railway is the Trans-Siberian Railway, isn't it? So I'd imagine the highway would be much the same. Yeah.
That was the original plan, was to do that ride. We kind of had the freight arranged to come back from Vladivostok and do it in 14 days. So again, it's a 500 mile a day, 500 mile a day ride. But there was I don't know what it was, 7 years ago. So that year there was a big do with politics in Russia, and there was a lot of tension. But 4 months before we were meant to go. So we changed the route, not quite last minute, but changed it to make it an Arctic bike off instead of a Russian bike off. Gotcha. So I almost went back, but I would love to. I'd love to go back at some point. But your point about people is completely well made. In my tiny, limited experience of trips and people, the generosity of people, and particularly those who have the least, is astonishing.
Yeah,
absolutely astonishing.
That's reinforced time and time and time again, isn't it? When you speak to people who've travelled anywhere, whether by bike, by truck, walking, cycling, whatever people you end up talking to, they all reiterate that people are good. People are ultimately just nice people that are cracking on, getting on with their own thing, looking after the family, and they will help if you need help. There's a very, very small percentage of arseholes out there who sadly make the news, but most people are brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah. Completely. Yeah, completely. And when that guy who helped us in the service station in Russia was kind of my first example. And then when I did the first TV series, which is where I circumnavigated the Mediterranean Sea, which I did with Danny, who plays the cat from Red Dwarf. Danny
John Jules, yeah.
So maybe I'll tell the story of how that came about in a minute. But
yeah.
How did I end up doing it with a cat from Red Dwarf? When did we? So we were 3 days in. So yeah, that was a 600-mile a day trip again. Big mileage thing. It was kind of the thing I had in my head was big mileage in those days.
You like your mileage, don't you? God.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
No, I used to be like that as well. Not now. Crikey.
Yeah, I could do it if I need to, but no, it was tough. That was very tough. But we'd met somebody on the ferry from Italy over to Tunisia, and he'd taken us back to basically he was our guide through Tunisia, which we rode in the night. We rode Tunisia in the night. Didn't see a single bit of it. There we go. That's kind of it's a downside of doing a trip like that.
Yeah.
Stayed at his house. Great generosity, and then. We'd ridden across Libya. That was an experience. Did that in sort of 2.5 days.
You rode Libya?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I thought that was all shut. God.
Well, this was 2012. So it was the year before the Arab Spring.
Yeah.
So it was the year before it all got shut down, basically.
Jeez, I forgot that used to be open. Blimey.
Yeah.
Jeez,
we did it. I mean, it wasn't long after you and Charlie did it a long way round.
Yeah.
Sorry, a long way down.
Yeah.
We had to have a travel guide going across Libya. He had to drive 500 miles a day in his van, like we did the
I'd
ride.
walk that.
Yes. So we'd actually been with somebody helping us for the first almost 4 days of the trip. So when we got to Egypt, it was the first time we'd been properly alone. And it was, I was there with Danny. He was just along for the ride, basically. It was all on me, but I was responsible for somebody else. So I was shitting myself, basically. Every border, every time a policeman stopped us. And you'll know, eventually you get used to that. And you'll know it's, sometimes it's just paperwork and sometimes it takes longer, but when it's unknown, it's terrifying.
Yeah. Initially, it is a real culture shock, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially, as you said, especially when you have someone else there who ultimately is relying on you.
Yes. Yeah. And everything that happened, and all praise to him. He was incredibly patient. He never moaned or complained. He knew what he was doing. He knew he was always getting involved. He knew it was going to be 12 hours riding a day.
Yeah.
He knew it would be long, complex border crossings. He knew all that, and he never, ever complained. Not once. But if something happened, he was waiting for me to walk forward. It was, and rightly so, because it was my trip. But the thing about the people was, so the first night we were in Egypt, I'd read Chris Scott's Adventure Handbook before I went.
Yeah.
The Bible.
The Bible.
Yeah. And there's some, one of the things that I remember very clearly was when he talked about wild camping, he said, go off a road and take 2 turnings if you can on paths, or just be 2 turnings away from the road, because that's safer than being close to a road if you're in a country where maybe there'll be bandits, etc. And he said, don't choose a camping spot in the dark. And there was a couple of other rules, and we broke all the rules.
Yeah.
So, 10, 11 o'clock at night, rode 50 yards off the road in the dark and put tents up. That'll do. I haven't got a clue where we are, can't see anything, in the middle of the desert. And we were kind of joking with each other, saying, what if somebody wanders over to us and says, get off my land? And of course, what happened? We see a torch coming across the desert, and we're thinking, oh God, we're going to be stabbed or shot or something. And it wasn't. It was basically a kind of shepherd lad. And again, with just hand signals, he basically said to us, come back to my house, eat, drink, sleep, my house. Because if you stay here, you'll be cold.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to leave the tent, we didn't want to leave the bikes. And we were trying to be, with sign language, saying, sorry, but we're going to stay here. And they got out his mobile phone, rang somebody, and we're offended now, and now he's going to get his mates to come and duff it up. 10 minutes later, a great big truck rolled off the highway, and his mates all went out with food. They brought the food to us.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
And for our first night by ourselves, and that happens. And you just think, oh, yeah. So, and I've had many experiences since that have been similar. You know, people are amazing.
Where did that journey take you from there then? After Egypt, where did you go?
So it was, a circumnavigation. So Egypt went across the tunnel under the Suez Canal, down a little bit of the Red Sea coast, and then got a ferry across the Red Sea to Jordan, all the way up through Jordan, all the way up through Syria, almost all the way up.
Oh, wow.
Cut across into Turkey, all the way up through Turkey, and then Bulgaria after that, and then basically Europe and home.
You're back into Europe, yeah. How did you find Syria? I'm so jealous that you got to Syria before it was just decimated.
Well, we were recommended to go to a castle, Crac de Chevalier. I think that's what it was called. So basically, a castle of the Cavaliers.
Right.
Basically, a castle from the time of the Crusades.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like going, not quite like going to Warwick Castle, but maybe what would be a slightly smaller one. I went to one in North Wales last week. A smaller castle, but not like Warwick, but a fully fledged medieval castle with a big car park for coaches, and it was just like going to a castle in this country, and it was no different. It was just you were a tourist going to a big castle. You paid your ticket, got your guidebook, and you went. Yeah. We even found there was a door that you weren't meant to go in. We had a look in there, and there was a film set. Got talking to the guy, and there they were filming a 25-part Cleopatra series. And the guy recognised Danny, so that was useful. Reg Wharf gets all around the world.
Certainly does.
Yeah, and for me, that kind of more than anything said Syria was just like any other country. You know, I mean, no, it wasn't completely, but much of it was just like being in any other Middle Eastern country or to a degree a European country. And then 10 years later, it's just torn in pieces. Yeah? And again, everyone was friendly, helpful everywhere we stopped. People were interested. Where you're going, where you're coming from. I think a great big tall white guy and little black guys, an unusual kind of combination of travellers on obviously Western European motorcycles, and people come up and talk to you all the time. Yeah.
Well, apparently it's open. You can travel there now.
Oh, okay.
Like there are overlanders going to Syria now. Which when I heard it, I was like, "Blimey, is that wise? Is that too soon?" But apparently they're there and not having any issues. So who knows? Well, I don't know what's left of the place, but
I know. There's a lad actually who he was went to the same rugby club as my son, so he's not even 20 yet. This lad. And he rang me the summer before COVID, or the autumn before COVID. So he was still only 17 at that point. And his dad had remembered that I was into bikes and had done some adventure. And he said, and so this lad rang me, or his dad rang me and said, would you speak to Tom? So I spoke to him, and he said, I've got a plan. I want to ride the world on a motorbike. I'm 17. And he said, so I think I need a 600, and I think I do this, blah, 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 blah. So I kind of said to him, hold your horses, hold your horses. Just
J6R 1000, that's what you want.
6,000, R1 would be great. So we had a long talk, but it was that he had the plan in his head. So he'd already done the CBT. He knew when he was going to get his license. He knew when he had a year or 2 years before he could go to a bigger bike, and he had a job. He was going to work nights for a year that would give him X amount of money. That would last him for a year, around the world for a year. And he'd do it by the time he was 20. So obviously COVID came, scuppered his plans. He's leaving in September.
Mega.
And his plan so far is to get to Sudan, and then he'll take it from there and see where he goes.
Love it. Yeah, brilliant.
So the world, the world's opening up. And he's
certainly is. Life goes on, doesn't it? I mean, my heart goes out to those who've been affected and severely affected with COVID, but life goes on, doesn't it? We've got to learn to deal with it and just crack on. Yeah. So what was that chap called? Tom?
Yes, Tom Love.
Tom, if you're listening to this or watching it, mate, best of luck. You're going to love it. Change
He
your
will
life.
have he will have an amazing time. I have to say, if my son, who is his age, was going off on a world adventure, I'd be going, slapping him on the back and telling him, go for my boy, and then dying inside and breaking in pieces.
yeah, definitely. My son, I mean, it's not a world adventure, but him and his mates just decided they were getting into cycling, and they just decided we're going to cycle to the south of France. So they did. They kind of cheated a wee bit. I think they got the train from Glasgow to London, then got the ferry across into France, cycled a little bit, then jumped on a train and trained it down to south of France, and then just rode around some of the sort of alpine routes and stuff down there. But he had a great time.
How old was he when he did that?
Oh, I was only a couple of years ago. I was probably 22. Yeah, 22, right. 23 then. So
I didn't know you had a 24-year-old.
Yeah. Well, he's 24 this year, my boy. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. I know. Yeah, started young.
You must have been a child bride.
I just turned 21 when he was born. Turned 21. Yeah. Third year at uni. That was a bit of a shock.
Wow.
Time to grow up. Oh dear. Yeah, no, he's awesome. Good lad. He wants to get into biking as well, but he hasn't passed his test or anything as yet. But there's time. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned earlier about some sort of life events that are sending you down a certain path at the moment. What's that all about? What's happening there?
Well, the life events were, I mean, it goes all the way back to when I was 20, but that kind of shaped the path that's left me where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can start the story just slightly before that, because the context is kind of important. So, it almost goes back to me being a very small child. I lived in America for 2 years when I was just between the ages of 4 and 6. And my parents took me to Cape Canaveral, and that made me decide I wanted to be an astronaut.
Right.
Okay. And then in those days, the path to becoming an astronaut was to become a fighter pilot first. Mm-hmm. If you become a fighter pilot, then you can become an astronaut. Or at least the opportunity was there. Different these days, you can be anything to become an astronaut, can't you? So from a really, really early age, I knew all I wanted to do was to become a fighter pilot in the RAF. So that was the thing I wanted to do more than anything else in the world. And kind of, I look back and I look at my kids now and they're not quite sure what they want to do. Well, one of them's kind of got it, but the others, and they're not untypical of a lot of young adults of their age. Some have a very focused plan of what they want to do, and some and a lot are just not sure. But I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I was reminded, an old friend who I hadn't seen for almost 30 years, we bumped into each other a couple of years ago, and we were talking about it. And he said, I remember you studying for when you were 17 for your interviews and your assessment centres, and you could name every member of the government, you could name what they did, what jobs they'd done before, where we had forces deployed around the world, every aircraft in the RAF, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, I actually worked really hard for that, and there wasn't much else I worked hard for. I was middle of the road student, did as much as I needed to get past, never really worked my socks off for anything other than sport and the RAF. So did all the aptitude tests, there was a kind of first interview and then a second interview in London, and then a 4-day assessment selection centre at Biggin Hill. Yeah. And even then you pass the selection centre, then you have the medical, and then you have the air medical. So it's a really rigorous process. So I actually looked up the stats because I talk about this when I do motivational talking, and it was like 1 in 4,000 got selected. Wow. I was one of those that got selected to be, and I was given my choice: fighter pilot or navigator. So the one who sits behind the navigator, because who sits behind the pilot is actually in charge, but the pilot's far more sexy with a bursary at university. So in my head, when I was 17 and a half, my life was sorted. I knew exactly where I was going to be. 3 years at uni, pilot training, fighter pilot by the time I was 23. So done, dusted, RAF career boy. Yeah. 6 months, maybe 4 months later, I got a letter saying they'd actually gone back and checked my medical records at my doctors. They didn't do that beforehand, strangely. And I had had an asthma attack when I was 13. Oh. thank you for your interest in the RAF.
No.
You can join the RAF regiment if you wish. It's not quite the same. You know?
Yeah.
Just not quite the same. It's just so.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big knockback. But you know, you kind of at the time you don't think about what you were doing to deal with that kind of bad news. Nowadays, you call it objective setting or set yourself a new objective, new target. So that's what I did. So I also happened to fail one of my A-levels, which didn't help. So my big university
Blame it on the asthma.
Big university plan out the window. So I went to Plymouth Polytechnic, so as it was in those days, through clearing, and which turned out to be, by coincidence, an amazing place to go to. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be in the forces still. I was still absolutely 100% forces. And I thought maybe the Marines as an officer, maybe the Navy. So I joined the Marines as a reservist and did a couple of years there just as a bootneck, not as an officer. Had a fantastic time. And in fact, I actually got my pre-call-up papers for the first Gulf conflict in 1990.
Jeez, did you?
I'll explain in a minute why that didn't happen. But maybe decide that's not what I wanted to do. And at the same time, I was progressing an application to be a seaman officer. So you know, basically the guys who drive the ships, who end up becoming captains of ships and stuff with the Navy. So I was continuing that, and I was actually on a kind of a short course. Well, still whilst I was at Polytechnic. But I was, what do they call it? Familiarization. That was it. So you can go and spend 3 days on a frigate, and you spend time with the captain and the officers and the crew. So you don't just eat in the officers' mess; you eat with the crew as well. I must. Slight digression. Billy Connolly used to do it. He used to digress, and then come back to the original point.
Then come back to it.
Yeah. I will come back to it. But we spent some time in the officers' mess with the captain and the senior staff. And then spent a day with the crew, and we were eating the crew quarters. And one of the lads who was there with me got up to leave and didn't pick his stuff off the table to take it back, because, of course, in the officers' mess,
somebody would do it.
The staff would do it for you. The staff do it. Yeah. Oh God, did he got an absolute roasting. 20 blokes.
Yeah.
Not on the officer's mess now. Anyway, so back to the story. So I was bunking in the same room as the medical officer, and I was talking to him about the RAF and flying and stuff. And he said, "Why don't you apply for the Fleet Air Arm to fly Harriers, as they were in those days, off of aircraft carriers?" And I said, "Well, asthma, the RAF wouldn't take me." And he said, said, "You've been in the Marines for 2 years." He said, "You've obviously not got a problem with asthma." So I changed my application to go for the Fleet Air Arm to fly Harriers. And the same kind of, in fact, it might even be more than 1 in 4,000, because it was a much smaller, there weren't many Harrier pilots around.
Yeah.
But did what they call the Admiralty interview board, which was basically the equivalent of Biggin Hill selection. So, and again, the same kind of process, 4 days of exercises and aptitude tests, absolutely exhausting physical tests. And I think there were 40 of us that went there, and 2 of us got through to that was 40 out of 4,000 or whatever it was. 2 of us got through to the end thing.
Yeah.
So I had my place to fly Harriers now in the Fleet Air Arm.
Wow.
And this was at the end of my second year at university, so I was 20, just approaching my 21st birthday. And so big celebrations again, as you would. And when I look back at pictures of myself at that point, I look back, and at the time I was thinking I was super, super fit and lean and muscular, because I've been in the Marines for 2 years, I've been training for the Navy, blah, 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 blah. But actually, there was another reason why I'd been losing some weight. And I'd found, whilst showering one day, a lump underneath my arm.
Oh.
And actually, when I went for my final, so I've been kind of accepted into the Navy. I had my my place booked at Dartmouth Royal Naval College for what would have been 12 months later. But the final piece was a meeting with, they called him the head of the Air Medical Board. So the Navy had a medical board that you had to pass, and then they have the Air Medical Board. And I had a meeting with him, and he said, yeah, he said, you're all kind of past everything else. He said, but is there anything else you need to talk about? And I said, I have found this lump underneath my arm. And he said, okay. He said, well, we'll just leave everything as it is for now. Let's see what happens. And I had the lump taken out and a biopsy done and stuff. And it turned out I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is the lymphoma of the lymph glands.
Lymph nodes, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And a very aggressive form, to the point where I was then informed, actually my mum had looked it up. As you can imagine, my parents were in pieces, my mum particularly. My mum had found out that, so I knew I was going to have radiotherapy and chemotherapy. That chemotherapy can damage your sperm, so you can become infertile. It can damage your fertility.
Yeah.
Because it kills cells. So I spoke to my GP about this, and he said, well, in fact, the hospital at this point. So this was only like 4 days after I'd found out what I had.
Wow.
And the people at the hospital and the GP, who were incredibly supportive, said, well, you can go and put something into storage, shall we say. But that's going to be done over a 2-week period, because you can't just do it once. You've got to do it twice a week, and you've got to recharge yourself.
There's so much I can say, but I won't.
But they said that 2 weeks is important. Yeah, that 2 or 3 weeks. We want you in tomorrow to start your treatment. It was what I had was that bad, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't risk. I said, I'm going to get through this. I believe that. I never stopped believing that I would get better. And I said, so I'm going to make sure I can have children. If the chemotherapy destroys my bullets, I want to be able to have some bullets stored away. So I had to go up to a hospital up in Bristol, and when I arrived there, it was basically a big sign. It didn't say fertility clinic or anything. It was a blood bank. And so when I went in, and I was with my best friend, who I'm still best friends with today, and in fact we've ridden up there on motorbikes as well. And the guy came out with a lady, I think a lady it was, and she said, yes, you're Mr. Hoskins, blah, blah, blah. She said, well, we're actually a blood bank here, so we have the facilities for storage, but not really for collection. So here's a sample pot. The toilets are down that way.
Oh, seriously?
Okay.
Done it in worse, yeah.
Yeah. Cold, dank toilet, thinking for inspiration. Yeah. So, so I've done a digression, but so I found, and of course, my friends absolutely pissed themselves laughing at this point.
Yeah.
But I had to do that 4 times in 2 weeks. So I had a year of chemotherapy and radiotherapy, and it's shit. And I have, I know there's people who've been far worse off than me with treatment for cancer, far worse off. But it's shit. It's horrible. It's really, really. I was very, very ill from. Weirdly, never from the cancer itself. I was ill from the treatment, and I was ill from the side effects of the treatment, and ill from the treatment of the side effects of the treatment. Because it lowers your immunity. If there was a skin rash, I got it. If there was a cough or a cold, I got it. I felt sick for 9 months. It's just, and for me, although I was probably still not as chubby as I am now, I put on masses of weight. I was hungry. Huge doses of steroids every single day. And it was just horrible. So I have the greatest of sympathy and some understanding for anybody who's been through it. But the thing with the Navy was I then went back a year later. I kept them informed, and they said, come back to us when you're well. So I went back a year later, saw the same guy, same office, and he was proper old school, handlebar moustache, wood, mahogany panelled office. He said, first things first, he said, you're here, and that's the most important thing. You're here, you've beaten it, I was in remission. He said, that's the most important thing. And he said, that shows the kind of strength of the person you are. And he said, so that's why I'm now going to give you the next bit of news straight to the chin. And he said, you're not going to be in the Navy. And he said, the reason why is because, say, every year we have 30 young men at the time, so they didn't take ladies at that point. And we'll say 30 young men will meet the standard we need. And we will take the top 15. He said, you'll always be number 30. He said, not because you're not as good as the rest of them, but you're a bad investment. He said, because your chances of not being here and therefore us losing our investment in you, our X million pounds investment, are greater than all the others. Yeah. And he said, that's a shit thing. He said, but that is life. He said, so I'm kind of sat there, and he said, the next thing you're going to ask me is, did I know the answer? Did I know this 12 months ago? And he said, I knew this 12 months ago. And he said, and you're thinking I'm a horrible person. And he shouted, gave some very nasty names to himself. He said, but at any point in the last 12 months, has a thought of getting into the Navy helped you get through it?
Helped you get through.
Every single day. Every single day did it help me. I can remember one particular occasion around Christmas time, or just after Christmas. I was having to start writing my dissertation. I just lost all my hair. I was in my first 2 months. Just felt appalling. And I didn't know where to start my dissertation. And I got out the Dartmouth prospectus with a picture of the Dartmouth Royal Naval College, and I read it 3 times. I thought, right, that's good. Now I know kind of where I'm aiming for. I can start doing something. I'm not saying I managed to did a particular job of my dissertation, because I didn't, but at least I got something. I managed to get through it.
It gave you the drive, the impulse to do it.
Yeah. And now when you talk, you kind of hear modern motivational speakers talking about goal setting and target setting and mindfulness, all those kind of things. Didn't know what any of those things were at the time, but I just kind of did what I thought would help. But those were things I was doing. I was setting myself a target, setting myself a goal. Sometimes it was the next day, and sometimes it was something a year away. But he was right. He was absolutely right. I hated him, but he was right.
It's true that about a lot of the motivational speaking that people do. I think a lot of the time when I listen to what they're saying, I'm like, it's stuff that you go, I knew that, but I didn't know I knew it. Do you know, it's a lot of the stuff, I think, for me personally, I'll put into place anyway, just inherently. I think if you're that type of person that sets goals and you're able to sort of prioritize and adapt to anything that comes your way, you're that sort of person, aren't you? But it's amazing to listen to different people as to how different people deal with different situations, like how their minds prioritize certain things and reorder certain things that they'll focus on. This as a matter of importance and then move to that one. And other people literally juggle 23 balls in the air and manage to keep them all going while picking up something new. I love how everyone's different, but ultimately it comes down to the same sort of plan of action, really, isn't it? It's like focus. Absolutely. And I'm never sure how much of it was nature versus nurture, how much of it was, what happened since then. Would I have been the kind of person I am without that? I think probably a bit, but it also probably heightens that in terms of if I want to do something, I won't let anybody tell me it can't be done. Yeah. And that makes me like a dog with a bone. And sometimes that's taken me a week, and sometimes it's taken me 5 years. Yeah. But pretty much, it doesn't matter whether it's building a kit car, creating a TV series, becoming a TV presenter, starting my own business,
buying a house, no matter what it is,
Mm.
if I set my mind to it, they haven't all worked out.
Yeah.
I've always given it my best shot. Most of them
Yeah.
worked out to a greater or lesser degree, but most of them have.
I've always said that with people, people that come up and say, "Oh, I would love to do," when they're talking about my trip, the world trip, they'll come up, "Oh, I'd love to do something like that," and I always go to them, "Okay, well, what's stopping you? Why can't you do it?" And they'll say, "Oh, I can't afford it. I've got a job." I'm like, "Okay, I couldn't afford it. I had a job, so you've got to put a plan in place then. So you need to work out how much you're going to need. How long do you need to get that amount of money? How are you going to get that amount of money? What do you own that you can sell? Can you do another job? Can you do overtime? Can you get credit cards? There's plenty of people out there that have literally just got a fistful of credit cards and just maxed them out for a trip and dealt with that afterwards. There's plenty of people. But that's what I've always said to people, is like, make a plan, an attainable, achievable plan that allows you to reach that goal, and then just put every ounce of what you have into making that happen. And if it takes a month, it takes a month. If it takes 5 years, it'll take 5 years. But if you want it, it'll happen, won't it?
That was it. I couldn't afford even to go and do a 2-week trip, which is why I needed sponsors. And actually, and that was part of what drove the TV show, was because if you have something on TV, no matter how big or small the channel is, that's a good thing for sponsors. Mm-hmm. Or exposure. An article in the magazine or something. Yeah. And also, I like doing stuff in front of the camera. I like writing about what I'm doing. So it never bothers me about having sponsors. I know there's lots of people who don't want that. I know Graham Field, for example, is very, very vociferous about hateful sponsorship because it ruins his trips. And he's right. For him, it ruins it. Yeah, the thought for him of being beholden to a sponsor is horrific. But it never bothered me. So, but finding sponsors is challenging. And to your point about making a plan and going and doing it, I remember being at a bike show, and another very big, well-known motorcycle adventurer was on his stand, and this young lad, again, probably 19 or 20, went up to him. It was right at the earliest part, so there weren't many people around, and I was going to go and talk to him anyway. And this lad was asking him about how do you get sponsors, and he said, "Oh, you'll never get a sponsor. It took me 10 years to get my first sponsor." And this poor lad, his face just went,
yeah.
You could see him being broken a little bit.
Deflated. Yeah. I must admit. Sorry, go on. Apologies.
Well, I thought I just went up to him afterwards and said, "Ignore him." I said, "He's right. It's really, really difficult."
Yeah, but
don't let anybody tell you it can't be done, because it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's
exactly what I was.
Here's some advice.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was away to say. Is I've been brutally honest with people about when they've come to me saying, "Oh, how do you get sponsors?" I'm like, it's really hard. It's really hard, because especially if you were like me at that, like everyone is when you first, it's your first adventure. You've got no pedigree. You've got no CV behind you, have you? So, you've got to think of it from the company's point of view. Why should they take that risk or invest in a total unknown? You have to treat it like a business, don't you? You've got to go forward with a business plan and say, for this, I will give you X, Y, Z, and it will give you this reach and that reach. And I found that really hard to begin with, turning my baby, my trip, into effectively looking at it like a business. And I still do to this day, like my whole TeapotOne brand is, well, that is now a business. It's my way of living, and I've got sponsors, and I never wanted sponsors, but you need them in life, don't you? If you've got bills to pay, mortgages to pay.
Yeah.
But again, I've been very upfront with my sponsors and said, this is the channel, this is the community I have, and I have this community because I don't bullshit. I'll tell people what I think, and I'm not ever gonna jeopardize my own integrity for the paycheck. That ain't happening. So I've been lucky that my sponsors know that. So I think it's about attracting the right sponsors for you, isn't it? As well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think in the world of looking for sponsorship in motorcycling or adventure motorcycling is actually far more challenging now than it was when I did that first trip around the medal, when I was first thinking about it 15 years ago, there are a lot more people who have done a lot more trips.
Yeah.
And it's not quite so unusual. So everyone's looking for a new angle, like the youngest, fastest, the slowest, the something, the sidecarist, or whatever. There needs to be an angle somewhere. Because I remember when we did the Moscow trip, I just looked up on the internet. It would have been the internet then. Yes, on the internet. Who was kind of the marketing manager for each of Yamaha, Suzuki, blah, 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 and rang them all and said, this is what I'm doing. Guy from Yamaha, I'm still friends with now. So he's runs his own PR company now. It was one phone call and he said, yeah, okay. And he lent us a TDM 900 and an SJR 1300. Very different. But we had 2 bikes to go to Moscow on and back. And sometime later, he left Yamaha and started a business. And I said to him, what made you say yes? And he said, because you had a plan, just as you were saying.
Yeah. He
said, I had a phone call every day from someone saying, can you give me this? Can you give me that? Lend me a bike. And he said, but you guys had, you had a plan and you had some PR that you had organized, some articles. You'd already done some articles. He said, so you stood out because you had a plan. So, you're right. Yeah. I mean, these days you need a bigger plan. But
yeah. It's interesting what you're saying there about it's probably harder these days. And I think social media that is the reason, isn't it? And the technology these days, like a GoPro, you can take a GoPro camera now and it's TV quality. You know, you can broadcast what comes out your GoPro and put it onto the TV, which is insane. A 400 quid little camera. And the production quality now that a lot of people, there's loads of people out there that can edit on their laptops and computers, and you can do it on the go, can't you? So people are producing, particularly for YouTube, they're producing proper TV quality series or films about their adventures, whatever it is they're doing. So it's quite hard. Like when I did it, sort of 2012, there weren't that many on YouTube, and the ones that were generally, I would say 90%. Not great, production quality wasn't great, and I'm one of them. I look back at my trip now and it's like, oh, that's dog shit, but you do what you do at the time. And nowadays, gee whiz, competition is fierce. Everyone's got a drone, everyone's got a 360 camera.
yeah,
definitely,
absolutely. And I'm the same. My friend and I made a little video of that trip to Moscow, and we had little cameras that had tapes in them. That's the cars. And we had little hard drive helmet cameras. I mean, they were terrible quality. And you look back now, and what we thought was fantastic then is shocking. It's terrible. I even look back at the quality of the TV, the TV series I did with Danny, Go Around the Med. That was all filmed on my little Sony Handycam and a couple of SD helmet cameras.
Wow.
The show is terrible. But that was they liked the fact they call it earthy. That's what they call it.
Yeah, that's right, earthy. You don't get away with earthy anymore, though. That's the thing.
No. And in fairness, we wouldn't have got the acquisition. It was an acquisition rather than a commission. We wouldn't have got that if only I had somebody who was famous with me. So that the difference. It wouldn't have happened without him. But somebody gave me that advice, and actually it was Russ Malkin, who's one of the guys who goes with you and Charlie on the big trips. And this was back in the day when Long Way Round and Long Way Down were at the bike shows every year. So Russ was there and Charlie was there, generally speaking, every year. And I remember going up to Russ at the Russ, hello, Charlie, hello. I want to make a TV show. And he gave me some good advice. And he said, have you ever worked on TV before? No. Have you ever made a TV show? No. Have you presented before? No. And he said, right, go ahead and he said, unless you go to a production company and they make it with you, so that you're working on the back of their experience. So I did try that route as well. which almost happened. He said, just go and do it and film it. And if it's good enough, he said, even then, this is again 15 years ago, really before YouTube was becoming huge. He said, somebody will be interested enough. If it's good enough, someone will probably take it. And he said, but try and find somebody who's either reasonably well known to go with you, or who can write about it because they're like a journalist for Times or something.
Yeah.
And it was Danny. So, but he came about because
I was going to ask, how did you meet Danny? How did that relationship all come about?
Over the period of 5 years, my original vision was to take 5 teams of people and basically turn it into a kind of a sort of semi-rally contest to get around the Mediterranean Sea in 2 weeks. You'd have a team of celebs, a team of forces people, a team of something else, I can't remember what they were now. And that concept, we got into Channel 5, Channel 4 with another production company. So, we almost got there. We almost got there with that, but then it didn't happen. I met a lot of nice people through it. And then I met Russ, and he gave me that advice about just do it, etc., etc. So I was talking to a couple of journalists, and I wrote to Motorcycle News, or rang them, I can't remember which now, and said, would one of your journalists want to come with me on the trip, completely paid for? I'd kind of scraped some sponsorship through a client, and the rest of it was just going to be on my credit card, as you said.
Yeah.
But I had got the bikes. I did get the bikes from Honda. Honda gave us 2 Transalp 650s. So I got the bikes. So I had bikes and just about enough money to do it, and basically a spare place. So went to MCN, and they said, well, here's they have a guest column. I don't know if they still do it, the guest columnist.
Yeah, I think they do. Yeah.
They said, here's the contact details for guest columnists. So there was one of the heavy bikers. And so I rang him, and he rang me back, and he was really, really nice. And he said, mate, I'd love to come. I'm too fucking busy. So he I forget which one it was. So he was too busy. Wouldn't get a sniff at him these days. I'm too famous. Nick Knowles, DOI SOS.
Yeah.
Again, I think we were 4 weeks before it. He said, fantastic, I'd love to come, but I'm too busy. I wasn't going to pay them. This was just come along on a super
on a free jolly, yeah.
And the other one was Danny, so because he was a guest columnist, and just kind of one of those weird coincidences. I emailed him on the Thursday afternoon, and he replied on the Thursday evening. I found out later that it was actually an old email address that he hadn't looked at in 6 months. He just happened to look at it then. He thought that I was somebody he knew. But anyway, the contact was made. We had a chat on the Friday morning, and he went, actually, okay, that sounds quite cool. Let me speak to his partner. And she was, okay, go for it. And so Friday afternoon, he said, I'll come. And I went and met him in London on Monday.
And how long after that did you leave?
3 weeks.
Wow.
and about 2 days after I met him, I had to take his passport to go and get all the visas stamped in it. And I remember him saying to me, he said, this is a bit weird. I really don't know you. I'm giving you my passport.
Yeah. Love it.
And we're still friends now. So that's the nice thing. We're still buddies. That could have gone horribly wrong. Somebody you don't know, you go been on the road with for 2 weeks in a quite a stressful environment. And it was brilliant. And then 2 years later, we did like an old man's Dakar rally down to the Gambia. So still in touch now. That's the good thing.
Brilliant.
But it was the persistency. That's the thing. It was just, like I said, look with a bone, keep on going, keep on trying,
make it happen.
And it wasn't version 1. It was version 8. That eventually became the thing. But that was fine. It was an amazing adventure. And the start of it was that spawned the West African one, and it was the West African one where I met Tom that started Adventure Bike TV. So
meant to be, man, isn't it? It's just the way life throws things at you to take you where you're ultimately supposed to be. Dude, we have got quite a few questions over on Patreon, and there's some over on Insta and Facebook. I'm aware of the time because I know you've sort of got a deadline of about 8 o'clock, don't you? Shall we?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, I've got a date with a kebab, a beer, and my son. A movie evening.
Happy days. Happy days. Sounds brilliant. Right, shall we crack on with some questions and batter through them? Because I don't pre-read them, so I've got no idea where we're going to go with this.
Cool.
Right, first off, we'll head to the clan over on Patreon. So it's patreon.com/TeapotOne. First one, Matt Sheen. Hi, guys. Hope you're both well. All good, thank you, Matt. I spent a very enjoyable day with Graham and the Adventure Bike TV boys down with Nathan Millward at Dorothy's Speed Shop. Riding the CT110 was a fantastic experience. My question to you both: if you had to re-travel any of your trips on a small capacity bike, what would you choose and why? Keep on with the hard work. Really looking forward to the upcoming series. Best of luck to you all. Cheers, Matt. Right, so
I remember meeting Matt. Wasn't that long ago. It's only a few months ago.
I'm going down. I'm going down to Nathan's, to Dorothy's Speed Shop, hopefully in September sometime. So I'm looking forward to that. Should be a giggle.
It's a great place, and Nathan's lovely. Yeah.
He is the most laid-back man you're ever going to meet, isn't he?
He's the most laid-back, intensive businessman, though. I mean, look at the business he's got there now. 20 bikes.
Oh, yeah. You kind of forget the scale of it, don't you?
He is laid back, but he's motivated.
Definitely. Well, he's a family man now, isn't he? It's got to happen. It's got to work.
Yeah. Gorgeous wife and a gorgeous little boy. Yeah.
Exactly. Life is good. So, right, re-travel any trip. What bike would you choose and where would you go?
I wouldn't re-travel the trip to Moscow. I would like to go to Russia, but that's sort of a part A. The most exotic adventure bit I've done was definitely West Africa. Yeah, and I would love to go down and do more of that. And what bike? Not the bikes we did it on. Not the Yamaha Super Tenere, that's for sure. With way too much shit on it, that's for sure. Something lighter, and probably simpler. I get asked quite a few times if I was going to do a world-span adventure, what bike would I do it on? And I do find myself caught between modern, complex bikes that are fantastic, but if they go wrong, you're probably buggered up, aren't you? So probably something simpler, maybe even something like a Himalayan, simple technology, but big enough and comfortable enough. Maybe a Himalayan then. West Africa on a Himalayan. How about that?
Okay. Yeah. West Africa sprung to my mind just because obviously it sort of beat me. So I would love to go back and try it again or do it again. And in terms of what bike, I've done a lot of the Sinnis, but I did a trip called the Big Little or the Little Big Little Adventure. I can't remember which way around it was, with a couple other mates, with Richie Vida and Mr. Fish, and they did it on Honda Cubs.
Okay.
And the Cub, I was gobsmacked at how versatile and what's the word I'm looking for? Just how good an all-rounder the little Cub was. It was faster than the thing that I was on, and it was a head turner. Everybody wanted to come and speak to you when you were next to that little bike. I think I had loads of fun, but I think they had even more fun riding it. So I think I would like to do it on something like a little Cub. And I don't know. I mean, West Africa would be great. Well, all around Africa would be great. But I think on the Cub, I think I would like to do, I want to do a trip to Greece. So it's not one that I've done, but I want to ride to Greece. And why not do that on a little Cub?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, take about a year.
We used the Cub when we did our 125 adventure on the previous season of Adventure by TV. We did an adventure around Wales, and Sam was on the Honda. Was it it was the Honda. Yeah, and it was going through rivers and
it does everything.
It did everything. And you're right, it was quicker on the road than me on the Sinus 125. which I also love.
Were you on
I thought the Citizen was a great bike.
Were you on a little terrain, the Terrain 125? Yeah.
Which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Brakes are shit. Brakes are terrible. but yeah, it was great fun. I had the new one. They've just brought out a new one which has 1 more horsepower. It's got 12.5 brake horsepower, I believe. So
was that when you did your 4 corners of the country?
Yeah, round the UK thing. Yeah, God, that seemed like a good idea. I'm still editing that video now. It will come out, I promise. But yeah, that was hard. That was hard work.
Yeah,
so that's one I'd go for, Matt.
Telling me you were going to do it.
Yeah, it's done. It's ticked off, so we can push that to the side now. It took me about 5 days to get over, man. I was hooped at the end of that. Next one, Paul Simpson. Who's the most inspirational motorcycle adventurer you've met or would like to meet? Oh, that's a goodie. Oh. Inspirational motorcycle adventurer.
Well, we actually did a piece on this on the last season of Adventure Bike TV, which is who inspires you in the world, in the adventure motorcycling world. And it's almost an impossible question to answer because I look at what you did, and it was amazing and fantastic. And I look at other some well-known people who've done stuff like Sam Manicombe and Graham Field and Austin Vince and Lewis. There's just so many people who've done incredible, inspiring things. And lots of people I've met who haven't written books about it or done anything on TV or done blogs. They've just done it because they wanted to do it. And they didn't want to expose themselves to any publicity at all for whatever reason. Yeah. And they're all inspiring. So for me, anybody who's done any kind of adventure, it doesn't have to be a gross bang adventure because it can be, if it's a big adventure for them, then that's inspiring. But I suppose I had to give probably the same answer I gave on the TV show. I had to pick somebody for a reason, and actually I picked Nathan. And the reason why I picked Nathan was partly because he did his trip, his trip from Singapore, from Australia to London, was started with a broken heart. And he did it on a tiny bike. And I know other people have done that as well, but he was kind of one of the first people who promoted doing things on a very small capacity bike. Yeah. But for me, it's what he's done with it since as well. And it's as you know, it's a challenge to make a living from the motorcycling world in general, never mind adventure motorcycling. It's a big challenge. It's very, very tough. I'm very fortunate. I have I do it for fun. It's my hobby. I have another full-time job, but as I mentioned a moment ago, Nathan is really, really. I don't know how much money he makes, but he has this incredible entrepreneurial spirit. Oh yeah, he's going for it, isn't he? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I met him the year he came back from his trip. We were at the Tour Tech travel event. So I mean, look, that was 8 or 9 years ago. So I've followed closely what he did. The book, working at ABR, freelancing, and then continuing his voyage across America and Alaska on Dorothy. And then meeting and falling in love with Sarah, becoming a dad, getting married. He got married before he became a dad. Get the order right. Moving to Cornwall. I've kind of followed what he's done. So that was the reason why I chose him. But everyone who does an adventure is an inspiration to me.
Yeah. For me, I mean, I totally agree with all that. For me, initially, it was Ewan and Charlie, and Claudio, because they were my first experience of just the possibility that you could ride a motorbike around the world. I'd never heard of Ted Site. I'd never heard of anyone else, Austin Vent, never heard of anyone else. And I just remember seeing that and thinking, oh my God, that looks awesome. I want to do that. And then the more I looked into it, then I found Nick Sanders, and then I found Jacques Lucassen, and like I met Jacques, and he was just everything I thought he was going to be. You know, he was just like, I told him what I wanted to do on the jigsaw, and he just smiled, laughed, gave me a beer, and he said, "We'll do it." And it's like, right, I'm doing it. And then the more I did, the more sort of investigation I did, I found these lads. I found these two boys. That's David Snelling and Curtis Murphy. I've had them on the podcast. They basically did the long way round route, but just themselves. Two 21, 22-year-old lads passed the test to do this amazing adventure. Dave he's ex-military, so he took a break from the military he was RAF Regiment, actually. So he took a break to do the trip. And, they literally just bought themselves a couple of little Suzukis, jumped on it, and off they went. And they did the full route, even the Zeelof Gap and everything, that stretch that Charlie and all that couldn't manage. Well, they did it. They did it. So they were probably my main inspiration, because I just kept thinking, if these two young lads with as much experience as I've got, if they can do it, I can do it. So it's, they were a big inspiration for me, and I've been fortunate enough to meet them after.
And you know what? The Ewan and Charlie thing is absolutely right. And just like you, I would never have started down a path of adventure motorcycling if it hadn't been for them. And I remember watching it when they first. 2000, well, it was the same year we did the Moscow trip. So 2005, watching it on TV, an episode, and I rang my best mate. I said to him, "You've got to watch this thing. You know that Ewan McGregor when he's in Star Wars. It's him and his mate. And it wasn't so much. It was the motorbiking, but it was because they were two best mates doing it.
Yeah,
and
I think that appealed to so many, didn't it?
Yeah, I said just watch it, because he and I had been riding bikes ever since we were at this was the guy I was at university with. And yeah, we blagged two motorbikes when we were at university. When I found out I had cancer, to do a charity ride to London and back, and that's how our journey of motorcycling had started together. And then he was a police motorcyclist like you were, and we used to ride every year, go on a trip up to Blackpool or somewhere and just get drunk and then ride home. And I rang him and I said, "Where's our sense of adventure gone?"
Yeah,
he was. No, he just left the police at that point. So he just left the police. He was having a nice steady job. I was steady, mortgage, children and stuff. And I said, we've got to get our sense of adventure back. And so that's when we came up with the Moscow idea. And it was entirely down to you and Charlie. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, people get quite snobby and snooty, don't they, about long way round? Oh, they did it on GSs, and they had a film crew, and they had all the support, and it's not really that hard because they had support trucks and all this sort of malarkey. But I still look at it and go, well, the vast majority of us out there who now either want to do these trips or have done these trips, you can probably lay it all back down on their feet, because they were the sort of initial spark that sent you down it. And B, no matter how much support you've got, it's still bloody hard to do what they did, and to get the TV show side of it. And you've got experience, I know, from just doing crappy little YouTube vids, that it's a lot of work filming something as you go, isn't it? So they've done that trip with all the people involved, and they produced what they produced. Full respect for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would quite happily stand and have their side of the argument all night.
Yeah, definitely. Right, next one, Kevin Beecham. Yes. Sorry, go on, mate. Apologies, go on.
No, that's fine. No, let's go. Otherwise, I'll be pontificating.
I know. We do have quite a few questions, and I'm conscious of the time. Kevin Beecham, hope you're both well. A question for Graham, please. Having spent the last few months watching all the Adventure Bike TV episodes on YouTube, which was the favourite bike you reviewed and why? Many thanks, and looking forward to seeing you and Bruce working together. Cheers, Kevin. So, favourite bike?
It's the impossible question. So the answer is that I don't have a favourite bike.
Rubbish. Of course you do. Of course you do.
I can answer the question, which is the ones that either surprise me maybe the most.
Yeah.
Of all the ones, so let me answer the question in a slightly different way. Of all the ones I tested, which was the only one I bought one of? And that was the 1190 KTM Venture R.
Yeah.
And then years later, BMW S1000 XR.
Okay, you got the XR.
At the moment. Yeah. But I love the Sinus 125. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. I love the Himalayan. I thought that was fantastic.
I've not ridden the Himalayan yet. I've not ridden any of them.
It's not, inspiring necessarily, but it does what it does exceptionally well.
Yeah.
So I guess if there was one outstanding favourite, it's the bike I had for 6 years, which was the 1190R. It was, and I kind of hesitate a little bit because any bike could be an adventure bike, and I love small capacity bikes as well. And I've had enduro bikes, I've had 2 690s, I've had small bikes, but that's the bike I've had the longest. I rode it on road trips, I rode it around Walters Arena, on Tour Tech events and stuff, and I did an amazing 8-day adventure across the Pyrenees off-road on it with normal tires and radio kit. So
it's that KTM engine, man.
Yeah.
Smiles in the miles.
Yeah, 1190. That's the one I'll pick.
I like it. Have you tried the new, you've taken out the new Super Adventure S, haven't you?
No, I haven't. No, but I've got
I thought you did.
No. I'm taking out the 1290 Super Adventure R in a couple of weeks' time on I'm taking some people on a weekend away with Adventure Bike TV viewers.
Oh yes, yeah. Is that the Wales? Is it Wales trip?
Yeah. And if anybody wants to come, there's still spaces.
I don't know. I put a link. I did put a post of that on my social media.
You did,
I think on Facebook or something like that.
Yeah.
So folks, if you're interested,
really
get in touch.
Yeah.
Nice one. Next one, Brian McManus. Hi to you both and all listening. Hope everyone is well. My question to you both is, here we go. When you throw a ball for a dog and it brings it back, is it 1, because it loves to chase and catch it, or 2, it thinks you love throwing it, so my human loves throwing this ball and can do it for hours? So does the dog chase the ball for itself or to please you?
For itself.
Do you think? I think it's a bit of both.
I think
it's a bit of both.
Yeah, I guess so.
If it was a cat,
what does that say about my instinct? Yeah, you're right.
Are you a dog person?
What does it say about my dogs, though?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we always have dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, your pecking order in the house. No, I think, certainly with my dog, I think my dog loves to chase the ball, but it likes to bring it back because initially she wouldn't. Initially, she would just get the ball and then bury it somewhere. But now she brings it back because she knows I'm going to throw it again. So I think there's a bit of to and fro there.
But is she pleasing you? Is she bringing it back because she knows she's going to get it again?
Oh, I don't know, actually.
Who knows?
I don't know. Puts a smile on my face, Brian. I don't care. Next one, Colonel Bullen. Hope you're both well. Love the podcast, Bruce. Keep up the good work. Cheers, Colonel. Thanks, man. A question for you both. If you only had 2 days to do a trip in the UK, where is your top getaway destination for a short break? And what is the most overlooked camping essential that people never think of when doing a trip? Oh, right. 2 days in the UK. Where'd you go?
So, having been on a lot of UK trips in the last 18 months, and week before last, I did Land's End to John O'Groats, my best mate, the same guy, and my brother, and we were talking on the intercom and in the evenings about, of all the places we've been to, we did a lot of Wales last year as well, and obviously a lot through England, through Peak District, Lake District, Kielder, up to Scotland. So we're having exactly this question: where would you go if what was the best roads and the best scenery? And I don't think there is a place in the world you can go to that has the variety we have in such a small area that we have in the UK. So first point, I love the UK. There are incredible places in Southwest, in Wales, England, and if kind of Devon and Cornwall and Wales and Peak District and the Lakes and Yorkshire and Kildare, if they were 96 out of 100, Scotland would get it at 97.
Yeah.
So as long as my 2 days were in Scotland, I didn't have to spend a day there and then come home in the 2 days.
Yeah.
It would be in Scotland.
That's the only.
But only just.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah, there are some amazing places. You know, I've sort of recently, within the last few years, just fully appreciated the Lake District because I'd never really spent any time there on a bike, and that's a stunning place. I've been up in the Peak District, the North Yorkshire Moors, Wales, South Wales, as you said, all over there. There's some gorgeous places. But obviously, being Scottish, I'm going to say Scotland, but I genuinely think Scotland just offers so much. There's nobody there for starters, so generally the traffic's not too bad of an issue, too much of an issue. There's great roads, stunning scenery. Yeah, and I think if you only have Curnow, if you only have 2 days, then obviously if you live in Newquay, then that is a hell of a trip. You can do it, just motorway it, just get up early in the morning and motorway. What, it'll be 8-9 hours, something like that on the motorway from there to reach. But even into Dumfries and Galloway, you know, just over the border into Scotland, most people miss all that and go straight up to Loch Lomond and then start having fun up in the Highlands. But even Dumfries and Galloway and Lothian, you know, and the borders all around there, there's cracking roads. Really is. Yeah. Get on Simon Weir's website and have a look at his routes all around there. There's just hours, days of fun. So yeah, Scotland. We'll go Scotland. Yeah. Right. Okay. The second part of his question: what's the most overlooked camping essential that people never think of when doing a trip?
So it's another great evening conversation to have with your buddies when you're out on a trip. Yeah, what's the best thing this year? What's the thing for next year? I'm not sure about overlooked. That's an interesting question. The most overlooked. So I think the most transformational thing for all of us as we get older is a decent chair.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's something I always forget and I've never invested in. And every time I'm camping and I see someone sat in a chair, I'm like, you bugger, that looks so comfortable. Because I'm in bits, sat on the floor or, you know, trying to find a rock to sit on.
And the nice thing is, I mean, so I'm not sure it's the most overlooked, but it's the thing I think we all agreed on is the most transformational. And they all started with Helinox with their very expensive camping chairs. And if you want a Helinox, you spend 70 or 80 quid. Or there's some very cheap knockoffs from the other side of the world if you want it. So you pay your money and take your choices. But they are fantastic to be able to sit back and lean back. Oh.
It's funny you mentioned them because my wee mate Ed, he's an ex-bootneck as well, lovely fella, and we were at one of the bike shows and he spent, I think it was 160 quid on this chair. I think it was a Helinox. Is it Helinox? Is that what they call it?
Helinox. Yeah.
Helinox on a little camping chair, and it folded down to about 9 inches high, something like that. And we were peeing ourselves laughing, going, "What? Why have you spent that amount of money on a chair?" And then when we were away, something happened. I think someone got a puncture, and he just whipped this chair out, and he was just sat at the side of the road on the chair, and he was like, "Who's laughing now?"
Well, we spent years sitting on the metal, on our luggage, on the boxes, or on little tripod stools.
Yeah.
Particularly as we're older and our backs are getting worse. The chairs, love them. So yeah, chair. That's mine.
Totally agree. I'm a very basic camper. I literally have a sleeping bag and sleeping bag and tent. That's it. I'd never even bothered with a pillow, with a mattress, nothing. But that last time I was camping the other weekend there up at Richie Vida's Wildbad, and I would have given anything for one of those little air mattresses, you know. So my back was killing me. Oh man. So yeah, I might have to invest in some kit.
I've over the years, my view is particularly if I'm riding a big adventure bike with luggage and I can take stuff, don't hold back, just take it. It doesn't affect the riding bike. if I've got to go light because I'm going off road and stuff, and I go light, that's different. But
if you're going to go what?
If I'm going to go light,
off road, did you say?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Why would that happen?
We'll learn you, Bruce. Don't worry.
God. I'm very aware of. I'm very aware of where we're going to be meeting this weekend, and that has sent shivers down my spine.
Oh, it'll be brilliant.
Yes. Next one, Roger White. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How you doing, Rog? Hope you're both well and enjoying the recent freedom. Yes. We've recently returned from a camping event where it's either bring your own or rent a tent already erected. As experienced adventurers and campers, if you've bought your own, where do you suggest sitting the tent? What are the things to look out for? I.e., do you site your tent on the highest point in the field, noting the direction of the slope? This is a dig at me because Rog was at Wild Bad Weekender, and I pitched my tent right at the very top of the slope because previous experience, when it rains over the weekend, the bottom gets really muddy. But what I hadn't thought about was where my sleep, because I had one of these lone rider tents, the big one that you can park your bike in if you want. Yeah. Well, I'd never ever put it up before, so I just whacked it up, staked it in, and that was it. I had no idea where the actual living quarters were. So when I opened it up and got inside, my living quarters were sort of at the bottom of the tent, like at the bottom of the slope. So I was just like rolling into the side of the tent all weekend. So he's having a nice little dig. Cheers, Rog. Yeah, so when you're camping, what do you bear in mind for when you're pitching a tent? Like, do you go for the highest place, the lowest place? Do you look for tree cover?
I look for the flattest space. To exactly your point, that would be my answer. I would look for somewhere flat because there's nothing worse than rolling off a bed. It's just even sliding down your bed or the head being too low. It's just horrible. So. Somewhere that's flat, dry, and preferably away from where you might find midges, because midges are horrific.
They will ruin your day. Midges and mosquitoes. It's not something that you ever need to worry about really in the UK, flash floods. But when you're somewhere exotic, does that come into your mind? I know when I was pitching tents, I would definitely not pitch anywhere near a sort of dry riverbed or anything like that.
Well, yeah, one night when we were camping in, so we were in either Morocco or in Western Sahara, when I was with Danny on our ship, and Tom was filming down to West Africa. And we did have that. It was kind of late. It wasn't dark. It was late evening when we pitched up. And we were tired. It had been a really, really long day. We weren't really concentrating. And it was only in the morning when we up and went, we're actually in a riverbed here. Yeah. Yes. So if I'm somewhere exotic now, I would think about it. I didn't at that moment in time.
That changes so quickly, doesn't it? And the river, because it doesn't even need to be raining where you are. It can be raining like 100 miles further up the river, up in the mountains. It's crazy how quickly the flash floods come. Yeah. So that's something I would bear in mind. Not really something you need to worry about in the UK. Right, next one. Paul Sparrow. Hi, gents. My question for Graham is, out of all the adventure bikes you've ridden, which one have you had the most fun or near-death experiences with, and which one would you say is the best? Well, we've already covered the best, but okay, most fun or near-death experience?
Near-death experience. I would like, hand on the heart, I don't think I've had a near-death experience on any of the adventure bikes I've ridden. My closest near-death experience was coming off my far blade on the middle of the motorway. Somebody sideswiped me
Well, that'd do it.
on the A40 going into London next to Northolt. About 20 years ago. Yeah, 70 miles. 70 miles an hour. So, so that's not an adventure bike. But that's my closest near-death experience.
God, how badly hurt were you from that then?
I'm actually incredibly lucky. I just bruised my back. So I hit either some part of the central reservation, but I didn't hit the car in front of me. God. Nobody ran over me.
Mate, you were lucky.
I closed the motorway. That was quite cool.
It was you.
It was me. I couldn't stand up. I had to be lifted into the ambulance, but a few hours later, I could walk. So I was just badly bruised. So I was very lucky.
Wow.
But full leathers, always wear the right clothing. And I've always done that. Always done that.
Yeah, definitely. I had... well, I definitely shouldn't be here. I had a big crash in Germany the day after I'd done the Nürburgring, survived that, and then the next day was just taking some mates around the Black Forest, and well, totally my own fault. Too quick going round a bend, hit some where the overbanding is. You know, the overbanding it was going right up the middle of the road, sort of joining two bits of tarmac, and the overbanding had come away. So I'm assuming just traffic going over the top had taken it away. So I was way too fast, knee on the deck, trying to be Valentino Rossi going around this corner. And as the bike sort of drifted across that middle section, the front just washed out, but it wasn't violent. You know, I'm still looking around the bend, and I just, out the corner of my eye, I just saw my bike pirouette. So I looked, and there's my bike, and it sort of hit the curb and just rocketed up over the trees and down into the valley. And I could see that I'm heading the same way. So I sort of flipped on my back, and the next thing I was just aware of like whooshing noises, and then watching the road disappear up into the air as I'm falling down into the valley. And I was just waiting for the crunch. And it was literally like, I'm not a religious man, but it was like something came out and just like took hold of me and just put me on the ground. And it's where I got caught in the trees and the shrubs. And that basically broke my fall. And I ended up feet down the hill, head up the hill, in a crucifix, my mate said. I was in a crucifix. And broke my back, popped my shoulder, done my ribs. Yeah, proper mashed myself up. Yeah. So I shouldn't have been here. So I went under the Armco, you know, the Armco at the side of the road. I've gone under that, and we were well over triple digits at speed, and I've gone through that. And my mates went and took their helmets, and if you put your helmet sort of lying this way, it doesn't fit. You'd have to turn your head to get it to go under. Somehow I've turned my head and I've gone straight under it at speed. So yeah, I think that was all 9 lives. Yeah, don't ride like that anymore. Right, we still got 3 questions on Patreon. We haven't even got to the other social media platforms.
That's fine. I'm fine for time. So that's
sure.
Going.
Right, we'll crack through as quick as we can. Pete English. Oh, here we go. Hi, guys. Hope you're both fitting well. Really looking forward to the upcoming TV show. Me too, Pete. Me too. Question. Name something an ex-girlfriend was better at doing than your wife. Oh, no. Good luck. Cooking. That's me sorted. Over to you. She'll not watch it. She won't watch it.
This is good. I'm struggling. You see, this is complimentary to my lovely wife. So I'm struggling to think of something.
Smooth, like it.
Can't think of anything. Nothing springs to mind.
That's weak. Come on, there must be something. I'm not letting you off with that one. Singing, knitting, bricklaying, playing the piano, driving. Oh God, no, not driving. Divorces will be started with that.
Singing. Actually, singing's a good one. Singing's a good one. Not knitting, because actually my wife's an amazing, incredibly creative. So anything creative, she's brilliant at. She's a good cook. Anyway. So singing.
Right, that'll do. That's an answer. We'll draw a discreet veil now. Let's move on. Cheers for that, Pete. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Yeah,
Joe, Joe Hicks. Hello, Bruce. I trust all is well. Question to both of you. Which country would you most like to tour that you haven't been to already? Keep up the good work and see you on the next podcast. Right. Where would you like to go that you've not been to?
Oh, God. I haven't really been to. I've been to many countries, just not that many. So my list is huge. I mean, basically anywhere in Africa that I haven't been to, which is a lot. Yeah, all of it apart from South Africa and North and West. I'd I've been around Thailand on a motorbike, but that's it. So anywhere in the Far East, Australia, New Zealand, South America, probably I would say top of the list. I mean, all of those, but probably South America, mainly because people talk with great enthusiasm and affection for almost everywhere they've been to. But I think the most affection and love I hear is probably for South America.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So South America would be top of my list.
Yeah. I really want to see loads more of Colombia. I only did a tiny little snippet of Colombia, and what I saw there was just amazing. Such friendly, nice people. I would love to do a bit of Brazil. Well, a bit of Brazil. Brazil's massive, isn't it? It's like almost the size of Europe. Almost. Brazil and Argentina. I'd love to do all that side of South America. Mongolia, I think, is top of my list. Since seeing Long Way Round, it was like, I've got to go there. I want to go there. So, yeah, Mongolia, definitely. I'd love to go and see. But there's so many, isn't there? I mean, there's just so much to see. Yeah, definitely. Right, next one. Mark Fulcher. Help me, Ducks. Quick question for Graham. Is the GS the best bike in the world? that Bruce, may I add strongly, suggests quite frequently. GS, best bike in the world? Of course it is.
Is he seriously asking me that? Do I think the GS is the best bike in the world?
He is. Because I'm always saying it's the best bike in the world.
So, if I was going on a trip, there was lots and lots of long miles, lots of them. Like going around, if I did my med trip again, what bike would I take? I'd take the GS because it's just
the best bike in the world.
Comfortable bike for a long trip. If I was going to go and do a Pyrenees trip again, I'd take the 1290 because the GS is not as good doing that thing you don't like, the off-road thing.
You like sitting at the side of the road waiting for recovery.
I've done that once or twice. But then GS.
I've done it on the GS. God, remember I got recovered back from St David's on the back of a tow truck, test riding the new adventure.
Oh.
Yeah, go on. Sorry,
I do love the GS. I do love the GS.
I think that's just a tongue-in-cheek question from Mark. His real question is, my question for you both. How do you both judge a good hotel room from a bad one? My judgment on a good hotel room is if a toilet brush is provided. Just for reference, Premier Inns don't supply such facilities, and so I felt disgraced the other day when checking out, following a few beers and curry and shortage of cleaning tools prior to checking out. So, how do you judge a good hotel room? None of this camping, Lark.
How to judge a good hotel room? If we're kind of talking UK type hotels, for me, it's always the quality of the pillow.
Oh yeah,
it's a good pillow. If we're talking foreign hotels, when you could be talking bugs in the bed, it's
got a window.
It's good. Yeah, A, it's got a window, and B, there's no creepy crawlies. That's the thing for me. Can't be doing creepy crawlies in any shape or form.
What is the worst hotel room you've ever stayed in? I've got one that springs to mind instantly.
Yeah, likewise. When I was a student, did what they used to call a jail run. So how far away can you get from your university without spending any money in 24 hours? I got as far as Paris.
Wow.
And with the same chap who I do my bike riding with now, and we booked into this hotel in the student quarter. The bath just had this kind of scum of yellow around it. The bed sheets were crispy, and there were rats. So that was my worst one.
Wow. Didn't have rats, but mine was in, I think it was Flores. It was in Indonesia. I was island hopping down through Indonesia on my way to Oz, and I had to stay the night before I got the ferry the next day. And I just found this sort of motel place, and it was horrific. I think I've even got it on video. I was I'd been sort of living wild for a few days, maybe even 5-6 days. So I was bogging in my leathers in like 90%, 95% humidity. I was rancid, but I felt cleaner in my leathers than I did like in this room. Never mind getting in the bed, but in this room. There was there was goo on the walls. There was just mosquitoes everywhere. It was a typical like Southeast Asia toilet. So it's just literally a hole in the floor and a bucket of mosquito-ridden water with a ladle there. And I slept in full leathers, boots, gloves, my helmet, everything. Just literally, it's one of them where you lie there thinking, is it time to go yet? Is it time to go yet? It was awesome.
Okay, you win.
Yeah, that was
I'll give you that
one. Right, man, that's 8 o'clock. Are you okay for another sort of 5-10 minutes? We'll just batter through these.
Yes,
right,
yeah, definitely.
Lovely. So we'll move across to Instagram. So that's at TeapotOne Insta. The first one isn't a question. It's just from someone called Geek Films. How awesome is the producer of his shows? That's Tom, who's the producer of Adventure Bike TV and the new Motorbike TV. Cheers, Tom.
Not only is he awesome, he's exceptionally pretty.
Yeah, he's a very good-looking man. Very good-looking man.
Very good.
Next one, Nick. Oh God, Nick in Knutsford. I always muck your name up, Nick. Sorry, Nick in Knutsford. Camping, glamping, or 5-star hotel? What you do?
I like all of the above, depending on the occasion. But my heart is always in camping.
Is it?
Yeah, I love camping.
I would take a shitty motel room over camping if there was any option, just because I'm conscious of toilet facilities. I never feel like I can, pardon the expression, I never feel I can get the job done properly when I'm out in the woods, and I'd much rather be in a proper toilet.
Yeah.
Plus the amount of electrics.
A few days of wild camping, you're desperate for a decent seat and toilet roll.
Yeah, and a shower. Yeah, and the amount of kit that I have as well. I just like to be able to charge everything up, get everything prepped. So I just like the hotel. Or I'm not bothered. It could be a shitty, cheap motel. I'm not bothered as long as it's got a toilet and some power. Somebody called Kristy Acts. She has to get in, doesn't she? She's got to get in. How you doing, Kristy? There he is. Look, RG. Yeah. She's very excited about the start of the TV show, isn't she? It's going to be a lot of fun.
We'd never guess.
Right, all the other messages on Instagram are just people saying how much they're looking forward to the show. So thank you very much, folks, for leaving them. We've got some over on Facebook as well. So this is over on facebook.com/TeapotOne. First one, John Tinkler. Howdy, guys. Love your biking channels. A question for both of you. Which one of you would win in an arm wrestling contest? And also, have you both ever considered doing the Mongolian rally on 125cc bikes together? Oh, I'm not saying this because you're here, but I genuinely think you'd win the arm wrestle. In days of old, maybe not, but these days, definitely.
Bear in mind the surgery I've had on my shoulders because they're falling to pieces.
You're a particularly buff man, Graham. I'm just a fat old boy with a beard now. Yeah, probably a few beers. We'll try that out. We'll get it on film for you. But I think Graham will win.
It's going to happen, isn't it? At some point?
It is now, isn't it? Now it's been mentioned. Yeah, Mongolian rally. Would you do the Mongol rally?
Yeah, I would love to do it on 125. I think it'd be great.
Oh man, I had Riding from Reality on, Holly and Paul. They came on and they did it. They did it on a couple of little cynices.
Yeah, yeah. I remember seeing that, I think on Facebook or something. I think it's fantastic.
I'd love to do it. Looks great fun. So yeah, watch this space, John. It might happen. You never know. Eddie Newitt. Hi, Graham. If you were planning a round the world trip, what bike would be your first choice and why? Did we speak about that earlier?
We kind of did, yeah. I mentioned the Himalayan. Mm-hmm. I think Himalayan because it's reasonably simple. Not too much technology in it. And for me, it's about, with my experience of eating in my limited experience, modern, complicated electronic bikes, they're great until they go wrong. And then you can be massively, massively screwed because it's too complicated to fix. So for me, I'd want to try and go something simpler and a bit more old school. I know Euro 5s and everything, there's no such thing as old school in a new bike. But I'd probably want to go something a bit older, maybe, or simpler. Maybe.
I'd say J6R1000, S1000RR, or an electric bike. That would be my options if I was to go again. What I've done, the BMW version of it because I like the brand, or I'm really keen to do an electric one. Very keen, very keen. Yeah. So again, watch this space. We'll see. Scott Campbell. He's a really interesting guy. Looking forward to this. Oh, talking about you. Oh. Cheers, Scott.
Thank you very much, Scott.
Next one, Simon Broom. Hi, both. Trust you're both well. All good, thank you. My question is to both of you. So far, what is or was the best or favourite bit of biking kit that you own that is or was your go-to every time you go out on the bike? So favourite bit of kit.
So we've done the camping getaway because we've got the chair. I love being able to have my helmet, camera, music, and listen to shit when I'm riding. Yeah. So any form of Bluetooth, helmet, camera, intercom system, I think is probably. I mean, it's obvious. It's kind of more obvious stuff about gloves and stuff, but that's the one for me. I think that'll be mine.
I never ever used to listen to music. I never used to have comms. I was never interested in it. For me, biking was getting away from all that. And then on my world trip, I had a little iPod, a little nanopod thing, you know, the little square things. And I started listening to, when I got to the States, I started listening to, I think I bought it in like a Best Buy or something. And I was just listening to music when I was just in the middle of nowhere on the big open American roads. And that just got me into it. And now, obviously, I've got the old Cardos, and I'm always listening to predominantly podcasts. I'm predominantly always listening to like Joe Rogan or Two Bears in One Cave. That's a Tom Segura and Burt Kreischer podcast. They have me in stitches. But I'm just generally always listening to a podcast. If I'm not filming, I'm just listening to that as it goes. So, yeah, I think I'm the same as you. Just the comms kit, which sounds a little bit sort of weird, doesn't it? It's a bit weak.
Yeah,
but,
I kind of feel like I'm letting the side down a little bit by saying that, but it is. It's
yeah.
And also when I'm traveling with a buddy, being able to chat to each other while you're talking. I mean, you can turn it off, of course, because sometimes you want a bit of space in your head. And if I'm really riding something that I want to be technical at, I don't listen to anything. But yeah, the trip we did from Land's End to John O'Groats, I was talking to my brother or my friend a lot of the time. Yeah, putting the worlds to right at some points.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, I mean, I think it's every bit as cathartic as being alone in your helmet, isn't it? Just having someone that you can just chat away with as you go. Definitely. And as you said, you can turn it off. Sorry, go on.
Well, equally, I've had to pull over because I've been laughing so much. Some stupid thing we've talked about. It was naming motorcycles. We were giving motorbikes a name. I was tears running down. I had to pull over. I just couldn't ride. It was so fun. It was so stupid. It was so fun.
I was going to say my other option, which is probably equally as sort of feeble, really, is my mobile phone, because it allows me to plot routes. It allows me to do a quick bit of research about if you go by somewhere or you stop at somewhere and say, what's that? You can just Google it. Oh, wow, that's worth seeing. All right, let's go and have a look at that. You can find campsites. You can find digs. You can, God, like for me, social media, it's just everything's so instant now, isn't it? So, yeah, I think the mobile phone is something I'll definitely always have with me because I use it for navigation and I film with it. I do everything with it now.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, I'm not really caring what bike I'm on, to be honest, as long as I'm just away and traveling.
Yeah, honestly.
Next one, Thomas Olison. What is the worst adventure bike you've ever ridden? Worst. Cool.
Comes down to your definition of adventure bike as well. So it's almost like, what's the worst? Because any bike can be an adventure bike. What's the worst bike I've ever ridden?
Yeah. I get asked this all the time, and
let me see what you think. See, I just love riding bikes, and I don't really care whether they're good, bad, indifferent. I just love riding anything on two wheels.
Yeah.
I enjoy the experience, I just love it.
For me, I can't think of a bike that I've ridden and gone, this is dog shit. I'm not enjoying it. I just enjoy it. But I've ridden some bikes that haven't got particularly great reliability for me in my own experience. Sadly, they were KTMs. But having said that, they are the bikes that I've enjoyed riding the most because they've made me feel young. It's that hooligan element, it's the KTM engine that just does it for me. And I was very close to thinking, I might. The next bike might not be the tractor. It might have to be one of these KTMs here, but we'll see. But yeah, I can't think of a bad bike.
The first time, the one that's probably made me go the most was what has now become the BMW GS 900. Is it now? But when that BMW inline twin first came out, and I rode it, it wasn't even in a GS then. And I rode it, I just went, it just feels like a sewing machine. It was just that's one of the ones I came away from thinking, ugh.
Yeah. No character, nothing.
No, nothing.
Yeah, I've not ridden that yet. Yeah. I don't really want to know.
The newer one's fine. I'm talking about 8 or 9 years ago when that BMW parallel twin first came out. That kind of stands out in my memory. It's much better now.
I've not ridden the bike that I have. I can't give too much away, but we were given a budget for this TV show. We were given a budget, had to go away and buy a bike. Weren't told what we were going to do. We still don't know what I'm going to be doing with this bike, but we're going somewhere this weekend to film something with these bikes. And I can pretty much safely say, although I've never ridden this bike yet, I bought it without riding it, but I know it ran at the time. But I'm pretty confident that this is going to be the worst bike I've ever ridden in my life. pretty confident this is going to be the bike.
Yeah, I've ridden mine and it's pretty crap as well. So.
I think we just admit defeat. Kristy wins and we can go to the bar. I'm up for that. Right, last one is from the great himself, Sam Manicum. And he simply says, this will be fun. I love you, Sam. He is the nicest man on the planet.
He is. He's wonderful.
Mate, we've done it. We got through all the questions.
Fantastic.
Sorry to take you over your time there. Take you away from your kebab night with your boy.
Perfect. Yeah.
Dude, before we shoot, is there anything you want to plug? Is there anything anyone you want to give a shout out to? Adventure Bike TV, Motorbike TV, coming to on your screens or coming to your screens soon. I can't wait to get filming with Bruce and Kristy for Motorbike TV. Me too.
I talked about the motivational speaking, grahamhoskins.com if you're interested. And if you're interested in coming on any trips with the crew, Tom, me, maybe even Bruce and Kristy in the future, keep an eye out on Adventure Bike TV's social media page. Road trips, we're going to do some next year.
Awesome. So where's that? Is that on your Facebook page? Or was that on the website?
Yeah, Adventure Bike TV. I can't remember. You can tell how prepared I am. It rolls off your tongue so smoothly because you're so good at this. So Adventure Bike TV's got some links to the website, but on Adventure Bike TV's website, so adventurebiketv.com, there's one of the links at the top has road trip on it. So we're doing one in a couple of weeks. As I said, there's spaces on that.
Awesome.
But we'll be doing a load next year. And if anybody's got any ideas or thoughts or kind of comments on what they would like to see as a weekend road trip, hosted by me and or Tom, then just drop us a note through adventurebiketv.com.
Awesome. I'll leave all those links down below. So if you're listening to the podcast, check out the show notes. And if you're watching the vid, look at the vid description, and all the links to everything Graham's just said there will be down below there.
Yeah, I must make sure I send them to you.
No worries. We'll sort all that out. Dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate you coming on for the chat.
And I
cannot wait. I know, mate. It always does. It's like a blooming time warp in here, isn't it? I sound like Rogan there, Joe Rogan. Yeah, cannot wait to crack on with this, with the filming. Really looking forward to it. And it's going to be fun.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Bruce.
Awesome. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. See you, buddy.
All right, bud, take it easy. Folks, hope you've enjoyed this one. Thank you very much for all your questions. Those of you who have submitted them, it really is a massive help, and you guys have now become pretty much what this podcast is all about. So keep your eyes on my social media, on Instagram and on Facebook, and obviously if you're part of the clan, you'll know when I've got new guests because I'll post up there. So leave your questions in the comments when I post up who's coming on the podcast, and we will get them included. All right, folks, keep doing your thing. Look after those that you love. Get on out there whenever you can and live your life. Woo-ha!
Bye.